Mama, they found us. Clara's whisper cut through the crowded train platform like a knife. Maggie Sullivan grabbed her youngest son and pulled all 4 children behind a stack of freight crates. 30 feet away, 2 men in black coats were showing her photograph to the station master. 3 weeks of running, 3 weeks of hiding, and now, in this nowhere town called Silver Creek, it was about to end. "Stay quiet," Maggie breathed. "Whatever happens, stay quiet." But 5-year-old Benny was already crying. If you want to know what happens to Maggie and her children, subscribe to our channel and follow this story to the very end. Comment below which city you're watching from, so I can see how far our story has traveled. "Shut him up," Sam hissed. "Ma, shut him up or they'll hear." "Benny, baby, please." Maggie pressed her hand over his mouth, feeling his tears wet against her palm. "Please, sweetheart, just a little longer." The men's voices carried across the platform. "Woman with 4 kids, 2 boys, 2 girls. She's wanted in Ohio." "What'd she do?" "Stole her husband's children. Judge wants 'em back." Clara's grip tightened on Maggie's arm. "They're lying. They're lying, Ma." "I know, baby." "We gotta move," Sam said. "Right now. Out the back." "There ain't no back." Maggie's eyes darted around the platform. Crates, passengers, a water tower. Nothing useful, nothing safe. "We're trapped." "Then we fight." "Samuel, you're 10 years old." "I don't care. I ain't going with them. I ain't going with Uncle Horace. You can't make me." One of the men turned, looked their direction. Maggie stopped breathing. "Hey!" A deep voice came from behind them. "You folks need help?" Maggie spun around, pushing her children behind her. A cowboy stood there. Tall, dark hair under a weathered hat. Eyes that took in everything. Her terror, her children, the men across the platform, without a flicker of surprise. "Stay away from us," she said. "Ma'am, those men are asking about a woman with 4 children. That's you, ain't it?" "I said stay away." "I heard you." He didn't move. "I'm asking if you need help." "Why would you help us? You don't know us." "Don't need to know you." He glanced at Benny, still crying silently against Maggie's skirt. "I know what scared children look like, and I know what men who hurt women look like. Those 2 got the look." "Ma," Clara whispered urgently, "they're coming this way." The cowboy made a decision. Maggie saw it happen in his eyes. Some kind of calculation that took less than a second. "Come with me, now. Don't argue." "I don't even know your name." "Caleb Mercer. Now move." He grabbed the nearest crate and shoved it aside, revealing a gap between the freight and the station wall. "Through here. There's an alley on the other side. Go left, then straight until you hit the boarding house. White building, blue door. Tell Martha that Caleb sent you. She'll keep you safe." "Why should I trust you?" "You shouldn't." His eyes met hers, steady and unreadable. "But right now, I'm the only choice you got." The men's footsteps were getting closer. "Ma, please," Rosie whimpered. "I'm scared." Maggie looked at the stranger, looked at her children, looked at the men who would take her boys and throw her in prison. "Clara, take your brothers and sister. Go." "I ain't leaving you." "Go." Clara grabbed Benny, Sam grabbed Rosie, and they squeezed through the gap. Maggie started to follow, then stopped. "Why are you doing this?" Caleb was already walking toward the men, putting himself between them and her escape route. "Ask me later, if there is a later." She went through the gap. The alley was narrow and dark, smelling of garbage and horse manure. Clara was waiting, holding Benny on her hip despite his weight. "Which way, Ma?" "Left, then straight." They ran. Behind them, Maggie heard voices raised in anger. Heard Caleb's calm drawl saying something about not seeing any woman with children. Heard one of the men curse. "Faster!" she gasped. "Move faster!" The boarding house appeared at the end of the street. White building, blue door, just like he'd said. Maggie didn't knock. She grabbed the handle and shoved, practically throwing her children inside before slamming the door behind her. A woman looked up from a kitchen table, spectacles perched on her nose, a cup of coffee frozen halfway to her lips. "Who in the name of—" "Caleb Mercer sent us." Maggie could barely get the words out through her heaving breath. "He said you'd keep us safe." The woman set down her coffee cup, stood slowly, looked at Maggie's terrified face, at the 4 children huddled against her like baby birds. "Caleb sent you?" "Yes, ma'am." "Then you're in trouble." "Yes, ma'am." The woman moved fast for her age. She crossed to the window, twitched the curtain aside, peered out. "2 men in black coats?" "Yes." "They the ones chasing you?" "Yes." "What do they want?" "My boys." Maggie's voice cracked. "They want to take my boys." The woman let the curtain fall, turned to face them. Her eyes were sharp and hard and not even a little bit afraid. "My name's Martha Hutchins. This is my house, and nobody takes children out of my house unless I say so." She pointed to a door at the back of the kitchen. "Through there, down the stairs, there's a root cellar. Get in it. Don't come out until I come get you." "But—" "Don't argue with me, girl. Just move." The cellar was cold and dark and smelled of potatoes and damp earth. Maggie gathered her children close, all 5 of them pressed together in the blackness, listening to footsteps above their heads. "Ma," Sam whispered, "what if they find us?" "They won't." "But what if they do?" "Then I'll kill them myself before I let them touch you." She meant it. God help her, she meant every word. Rosie was crying now, soft, hiccuping sobs she tried to muffle against Clara's shoulder. Benny hadn't made a sound since they'd entered the cellar. He just sat there, still as a stone, his eyes huge in the darkness. "Who was that man?" Clara asked. "The cowboy." "I don't know." "He helped us. Why?" "I don't know." "Do you trust him?" Maggie thought about the way he'd looked at her. No pity, no judgment, just a question. "Do you need help?" "I don't know," she said again. But he didn't have to do what he did. He could have walked away. He didn't. "That don't mean he's good." "No, it don't." Above them, the front door slammed. Everyone went rigid. Voices, Martha's first, sharp and indignant. "I already told you, there ain't no woman with children here. This is a respectable establishment. I don't harbor fugitives." A man's voice, rough and impatient. "We got information she came this direction." "Then your information's wrong." "Mind if we look around?" "Yes, I mind. You got a warrant?" "We don't need a warrant. We're acting on behalf of Judge Horace Blackwood of—" "I don't care if you're acting on behalf of the president himself. You ain't searching my house without proper legal authority. Now get out before I get my shotgun." A pause. A long, terrible pause. Then footsteps, moving toward the back of the house, toward the cellar door. Maggie pulled her children closer, felt Clara's hand find hers in the dark, felt Sam's body tense beside her, ready to fight despite being a child, despite having no weapon, despite everything. The footsteps stopped. "There a basement in this place?" the man asked. "Root cellar," Martha said calmly. "Full of rats. You want to go down there, be my guest. But I'm warning you, the big ones bite." Another pause. "We'll be back," the man said finally, "with a warrant. And when we come back, We're searching every inch of this place. You're harboring a kidnapper, Mrs. Hutchins. That makes you an accomplice. Get out of my house!" The front door slammed again. Silence. Then Martha's voice, calling down through the floorboards. "You can come out now. They're gone." Maggie didn't move. Couldn't move. The terror had frozen her in place, turned her muscles to stone. "Ma," Clara's voice was gentle. "Ma, we gotta go up." "What if they're still there? What if it's a trick? Then we deal with it, but we can't stay down here forever." Clara was right. Clara was always right. When had her 12-year-old become the strong one? Maggie forced herself to stand, forced her legs to climb the narrow stairs, pushed open the cellar door and stepped into the kitchen, blinking against the lamplight. Martha was standing by the stove, already putting a kettle on to boil. She looked at Maggie with those sharp, knowing eyes. "Sit down before you fall down." "I can't impose." "Girl, you just hid in my cellar while I lied to the law for you. We're past the point of imposing. Sit." Maggie sat. The children gathered around her, Clara taking the chair closest to the door, Sam standing with his back against the wall, Rosie climbing into Maggie's lap, Benny pressing against her side. "Now," Martha said, pouring hot water into a teapot, "you want to tell me what in God's name is going on?" "My husband's brother wants my sons." "Why?" "Because he ain't got any children of his own. Because Thomas, my husband, died 8 months ago and left him nothing but debts and disappointment. Because he's a judge, and he thinks the law gives him the right to take whatever he wants." "Does it?" "He says I'm unfit. He got a court order back in Ohio declaring me an unfit mother." "Are you?" "No, ma'am." Maggie's voice was steady, despite the tears burning her eyes. "I've made mistakes. Lord knows I've made plenty. But I love my children, and I've done everything I could to protect them. Everything. That's why we're running." Martha poured tea into chipped cups, set them on the table. "And the father? Thomas? What was he like?" Silence. "Ma," Sam said quietly, "you don't have to. He was cruel." The word came out flat and hard. "He drank. He hit. He made our lives a living hell for 8 years. And when he finally died, I thought we were free. I thought it was over. But it ain't. No. Because now his brother wants what Thomas left behind. Not me, not the girls, just the boys." Maggie pulled Benny closer. "Like they're property. Like they're things to be collected." Martha sat down across from her. "That man at the station, Caleb, how'd you meet him?" "I didn't. He just appeared. Saw we were in trouble and decided to help." "That sounds like Caleb." A small smile crossed Martha's weathered face. "He's been that way since I've known him. Can't abide seeing folks suffer. Especially women. Especially children." "Why?" "That's his story to tell, not mine." Martha sipped her tea. "But I'll say this much. 6 years ago, that man lost everything that mattered to him. Wife and baby girl, both gone in one terrible night. It broke something in him. But it also made him, I don't know how to explain it, made him soft in the places most men are hard. Made him want to fix things he can't fix, help people he don't even know. He put himself in danger for us. Those men could have hurt him." "Could have. Probably didn't. Caleb Mercer may look like just another cowboy, but he was a soldier once. Union Army. Saw things that'd turn your hair white. He can handle 2 hired thugs." Clara spoke up from her post by the door. "You said he lost his wife and baby. How?" Martha's expression flickered. Something painful crossed her face and was gone. "Childbirth. The baby came too early. and there wasn't no doctor close enough to help. He buried them both under the cottonwood tree by his house. Ain't been the same since. The kitchen fell silent. Even Sam's angry tension seemed to ease a little. "That's sad," Rosie said softly. "That's real sad." "It is, sweetheart. It surely is." A knock at the door made everyone jump. Martha held up a hand. "Stay here, all of you." She went to the door, peered through the small window beside it, then opened it. Caleb Mercer stepped inside. He looked the same as before, tall, steady, unreadable. But there was a cut on his cheekbone now, bleeding sluggishly, and his knuckles were scraped raw. "They're gone," he said, headed back toward the train station. "Probably going to wire for reinforcements." "You all right?" Martha asked. "Fine." His eyes found Maggie across the room. "You?" "We're alive, thanks to you." "Don't thank me yet. Those men ain't going to give up. They'll be back with more help, and probably legal papers. Whatever they're after, they want it bad." "My boys." Maggie stood, putting herself between Caleb and her children. "They want my boys." Caleb's gaze shifted to Sam and Benny. Sam glared back defiantly. Benny hid his face against Maggie's skirt. "Why?" "Their uncle's a judge back in Ohio. He wants them." "And you don't want him to have them?" "I'd die first." Something shifted in Caleb's expression. A flicker of recognition, maybe. Or respect. "All right, then." He turned to Martha. "She can't stay here. Those men know she came this direction. They'll search every building on this street." "Then where's she supposed to go?" Caleb was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was careful, measured. "My place. It's 2 hours from here. Middle of nowhere. Nobody'd think to look there." "Absolutely not." Maggie shook her head. "I don't even know you." "You know I helped you when I didn't have to. You know those men are coming back. And you know you ain't got a lot of options right now." "Mama," Clara said, her voice low and urgent. "He's right. We can't stay here." "Clara, I don't like it either." "But what else are we going to do? Wait for them to come back with more men and drag Sam and Benny away?" "I won't go with him," Sam said flatly. "I don't trust him." "You don't gotta trust me," Caleb said, and his voice was surprisingly gentle. "You just gotta stay alive long enough to figure out your next move. That's all I'm offering. A place to hide, some time to think. Nothing more." Maggie looked at her children. Clara, trying so hard to be brave. Sam, coiled with fear and fury. Rosie, exhausted and scared. Benny, silent as a ghost. She looked at Martha, who gave her a small nod. She looked at Caleb Mercer, this stranger who had put himself in harm's way for people he'd never met, who had blood on his face and kindness in his voice. "Why are you doing this?" she asked. "Really, why?" He didn't answer for a long moment. Then, "Because I had a wife and daughter once, and when they needed help, there wasn't nobody around to give it. They died alone and scared, and I couldn't do nothing about it." His voice didn't waver, but something in his eyes went very far away. "I can't change what happened to them, but I can make sure it don't happen to someone else. Not if I can help it. Not while I got breath in my body." The kitchen was silent. Then Benny, who hadn't spoken a word since they'd arrived in Silver Creek, lifted his head from Maggie's skirt. "Mama," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "The man looks sad." Maggie's heart cracked open. "Yeah, baby," she said softly. "I think he is." She looked at Caleb again, at this sad, quiet man who helped strangers for reasons he couldn't fully explain. "All right," she said. "We'll go with you." "Ma, no!" Sam started. "Enough, Samuel. We don't have a choice." But I said enough. Clara stepped forward. I got conditions. Caleb raised an eyebrow. You're a little young to be making conditions. I ain't too young to protect my family. First condition. We sleep in the house, you sleep in the barn. Second, you don't touch my mama or any of us. Third, soon as we figure out another plan, we leave. You don't try to stop us. Clara May Sullivan, Maggie said sharply. That's enough. No, it ain't. Clara's chin jutted out, stubborn and fierce. You trusted Pa, too. Look where that got us. The words hung in the air like smoke. Caleb looked at Clara for a long moment. Something passed between them, some kind of understanding that Maggie couldn't quite read. Fair enough, he said finally. I'll sleep in the barn. I won't touch none of you. And when you're ready to leave, I'll help you go. You got my word. Your word don't mean nothing to me. I know, but it's all I got to give. He turned to Martha. Can you pack them some food for the road? It's a long ride. Already on it. Martha was already moving around the kitchen, gathering bread and dried meat into a cloth bundle. You be careful, Caleb Mercer. Those men seem dangerous. I've handled worse. 20 minutes later, they were loading into a wagon behind the boarding house. Caleb had a horse tied to the back, a patient sorrel mare that watched the children with gentle brown eyes. The little ones can ride in the wagon bed, Caleb said. There's blankets back there. Ma'am, you can sit up front with me, or in back with your children. Your choice. I'll sit in back. Figured you'd say that. Sam climbed up first, then helped Rosie and Benny into the wagon bed. Clara hesitated, looking back at the boarding house. Miss Martha? Yes, child? Thank you. For hiding us. For lying to those men. Martha's face softened. You just take care of your mama, you hear? She's got a lot on her shoulders. Yes, ma'am. I know. Maggie was the last to climb into the wagon. Before she did, she turned to Caleb. If you hurt my children, she said quietly, so the kids wouldn't hear, I'll kill you. I don't care how big you are, or how sad your story is. I'll kill you, and I won't lose a moment's sleep. Caleb met her eyes without flinching. Ma'am, if I hurt your children, I'd expect nothing less. The wagon rolled out of Silver Creek as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and blood red. Maggie sat with her back against the wagon's side, Benny asleep in her lap, Rosie's head on her shoulder. Clara and Sam sat across from her, both watching Caleb's back with suspicious eyes. Ma, Sam said quietly, what are we going to do? I don't know yet. Those men are going to come back. I know. They're going to bring more people, maybe the law, real law, not just hired guns. I know, Sam. Then what's the plan? Maggie looked at her son, at his young face already lined with worry and anger, at the weight he carried that no 10-year-old should have to carry. The plan is to stay alive, she said. One day at a time, 1 hour at a time, however long it takes to figure out something better. That ain't much of a plan. No, it ain't. The wagon creaked along the rutted road, heading into the wilderness. Behind them, Silver Creek disappeared into the gathering darkness. Ahead, nothing but open land and uncertain future. Clara's voice broke the silence. Ma, that man back there, the one who helped us. What about him? You think we can really trust him? Maggie thought about the blood on his face, the scraped knuckles, the way he'd stepped between them and danger without hesitation. I think he wants to help, she said slowly. Whether that means we can trust him, I don't know yet, but he's the only chance we got right now. I don't like depending on strangers. Neither do I, baby. Neither do I. The wagon rolled on through the darkness, carrying them further from the men who hunted them. closer to a stranger's home, deeper into a future none of them could predict. Maggie held her children close and prayed she wasn't making the biggest mistake of her life. 2 hours later, they arrived at Caleb Mercer's ranch. It was smaller than Maggie had expected, but solid-looking. A simple wooden house with a porch running along the front, a barn, a corral with a few horses inside, a windmill creaking slowly in the night breeze. "This is it," Caleb said, pulling the wagon to a stop. "Ain't much, but it's dry and warm, and nobody knows you're here." He jumped down and came around to help them out of the wagon. Sam refused his hand, climbing down on his own. Clara did the same. Rosie was too tired to protest, letting Caleb lift her down easily. Benny stayed in Maggie's arms, his face buried in her neck. "House is through here," Caleb said, leading them toward the front door. "Kitchen, main room, bedroom in the back. You and the children can have the bedroom. Like your daughter said, I'll sleep in the barn." "That ain't necessary," Maggie started. "Yes, it is." Caleb opened the door, stepped aside to let them enter. "You don't know me. You got no reason to feel safe around me. Until that changes, I'll keep my distance." The inside of the house was plain but clean. A fireplace dominated one wall, already stocked with wood. A rough-hewn table with 4 chairs. A kitchen area with a cast-iron stove. Everything simple, practical, clearly built and maintained by a man living alone. But there were hints of something else. A woman's touch, long faded. Curtains that had once been cheerful. A faded sampler on the wall, the stitching reading, "Home Sweet Home." And above the fireplace, a small wooden cross. Simple, unadorned. "Your wife made that?" Clara asked, pointing at the sampler. Caleb's face went very still. "Yeah." "It's pretty." She was pretty too. He turned away, his voice gruff. "I'll get water from the well. You folks get settled. There's food in the pantry. Ain't much, but it'll keep you fed tonight. We'll figure out the rest tomorrow." He was gone before Maggie could say anything else. "Ma," Rosie said sleepily, "can we sleep now?" "Yes, baby. Let's get you all to bed." The bedroom was small, with one large bed that had clearly been built for 2. A cradle sat in the corner, covered with a thin layer of dust. Maggie looked at it and felt her heart twist. His wife and daughter. This was where they would have slept. "Ma?" Clara was watching her. "You okay?" "I'm fine." Maggie pulled back the covers on the bed. "Come on, all of you. In." They piled onto the bed together, 4 children and their mother, crowded but warm. Benny fell asleep almost immediately, exhausted beyond words. Rosie followed moments later, her breathing evening out into the rhythm of deep sleep. Sam lay stiff and tense beside Maggie, staring at the ceiling. "You still awake?" she whispered. "Can't sleep." "Try." "Ma." He paused, struggling with words. "What if this is a mistake? What if this man's just waiting for us to let our guard down?" "Then we deal with it." "How?" "I don't know yet, but I'll figure it out. I always do." "Do you?" Sam's voice was bitter. "You didn't figure out Pa, not until it was too late." The words hit Maggie like a slap. "Sam, I'm sorry." His voice cracked. "I didn't mean that. I'm scared, Ma. I don't want to go with Uncle Horace. He's worse than Pa was. I can tell. The way he looks at us, like we're things instead of people." "You're not going with him. I won't let that happen." "You might not have a choice." "There's always a choice, Samuel. Always. Sometimes it's just harder to find." Clara's voice came from the other side of the bed, soft and tired. "We should sleep, Ma. Whatever happens tomorrow, we'll need our strength." "You're right." Maggie pressed a kiss to Sam's forehead, then Clara's. "Sleep now. I'll keep watch." You need sleep too. I'll sleep when I know we're safe. Ma! Hush. Sleep. The children eventually drifted off, their breathing slow and steady in the darkness. Maggie lay awake, listening to the unfamiliar sounds of this strange house. The creak of settling wood, the whisper of wind through gaps in the walls, the distant whinny of a horse in the barn. Somewhere out there, Blackwood's men were regrouping, planning their next move, coming for her boys. And here she was, in a stranger's house, miles from anywhere, trusting a man she'd known for less than a day. Clara was right. She had trusted the wrong man once before, and it had cost her 8 years of hell. But what choice did she have? A soft knock at the bedroom door made her sit up, heart racing. It's Caleb. His voice was quiet, barely audible through the wood. I brought water and some bread. Leaving it outside the door. Just wanted you to know. Footsteps retreating, the creak of the front door opening and closing. Maggie waited several minutes before she moved, crept to the door, opened it carefully. A pitcher of water sat on the floor, next to a plate with fresh bread and a small jar of honey. A folded blanket lay beside them, clearly meant for extra warmth. No note, no expectation, just kindness. Maggie picked up the items and brought them inside. She poured water for the children to drink when they woke, set the bread aside for breakfast, wrapped the extra blanket around Benny's sleeping form. Then she sat down on the edge of the bed and finally let herself cry. Silent tears, the kind she'd learned to shed without making a sound. Tears for Thomas and the man she'd thought he was. Tears for her children and the childhood they'd never have. Tears for herself and the dreams she'd buried long ago. And somewhere beneath all that grief, a tiny spark of something else. Something she barely dared to name. Hope. Maybe, just maybe, they had found somewhere safe. Maybe this stranger, with the sad eyes and gentle hands, was exactly what he seemed to be. Maybe, for the first time in years, things were going to be okay. Maggie wiped her eyes and lay back down beside her children. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new fears, new decisions. But tonight, they were warm and fed and together. That was enough. It had to be enough. She closed her eyes, and for the first time in 3 weeks, Margaret Sullivan slept. The scream came just before dawn. The scream came just before dawn. Maggie was on her feet before her eyes were fully open, heart slamming against her ribs, hands already reaching for her children. Benny, baby, wake up! Her youngest son was thrashing in the bed, tangled in blankets, his small body rigid with terror. His eyes were open but seeing nothing, trapped in whatever nightmare had seized him. No, he wailed. Don't hurt Mama! Don't hurt Mama! I'm here, baby. I'm right here. Nobody's hurting Mama. Clara was awake now, helping to hold Benny still so he wouldn't hurt himself. Sam stood by the door, fists clenched, looking for an enemy to fight. Rosie was crying, clutching her pillow. Benny, look at me. Maggie grabbed his face, forced him to meet her eyes. Look at me. It's Mama. You're safe. We're all safe. Slowly the wildness faded from his eyes. He blinked, focused on her face. Mama? I'm here. I saw him. I saw Pa. He was hurting you again. Pa's gone, sweetheart. He can't hurt anyone anymore. But I saw him. It was just a dream. Just a bad dream. The bedroom door burst open. Caleb stood in the doorway, rifle in hand, eyes scanning the room for threats. He was dressed in yesterday's clothes, clearly having slept in them, his hair disheveled and his jaw tight with alarm. What happened? I heard screaming. Sam stepped in front of his siblings. Get out. I heard screaming, Caleb repeated. Is everyone okay? I said, get out. Sam, Maggie's voice was sharp. That's enough. He ain't got no right to be in here. He thought we were in danger. He was trying to help. Maggie looked at Caleb over Sam's head. My son had a nightmare, that's all. We're fine. Caleb's grip on the rifle relaxed, but he didn't lower it completely. His eyes found Benny, still trembling in Maggie's arms. Bad dreams? Benny nodded, his face half hidden against Maggie's chest. I used to get those too. Caleb's voice was quiet. After the war. Sometimes I still do. We don't need your sympathy, Sam snapped. Sam? No, Ma, he don't know us. He don't know what we've been through. He can't just come in here acting like he understands. Caleb studied Sam for a long moment. Something flickered in his expression. Not anger, but recognition. You're right, he said finally. I don't know what you've been through, and I ain't pretending to understand. But I know what it looks like when a child carries more weight than any child should. I'm looking at it right now. Sam's jaw tightened, but he didn't respond. I'll make coffee, Caleb said, and breakfast. When you're ready, come out to the kitchen. He paused at the door. Take your time. Ain't nobody rushing you. He left, closing the door quietly behind him. I don't like him, Sam said immediately. You've made that clear. He's too nice. Nobody's that nice without wanting something. Maybe some people are just decent, Sam. Pa was decent at first too, remember? He brought you flowers. He said all the right things. And then, I remember. Maggie's voice was flat. I remember everything. But not every man is your father. How do you know? I don't. Not for certain. But I'm not going to spend my life assuming the worst of everyone. That's no way to live. Clara spoke up from the bed, where she was comforting Rosie. Sam's got a point, Ma. We should be careful. I am being careful. But careful don't mean hostile. This man took us into his home when he didn't have to. The least we can do is be civil. Civil ain't the same as trustin'. No, it ain't. And I ain't asking you to trust him. I'm asking you to give him a chance to earn it. Maggie smoothed Benny's hair back from his forehead. Can you do that? All of you? Clara and Sam exchanged glances. Some silent communication passed between them. Fine, Sam said finally. But the minute he does something suspicious, we're gone. Agreed. They found Caleb in the kitchen, stirring something in a pot over the wood stove. The smell of coffee filled the small space, rich and warm. Eggs were frying in a cast-iron pan. Sit down, he said without turning around. Food's almost ready. The children hesitated. Maggie gave them a gentle push toward the table, then helped Benny into a chair. He was still shaky from the nightmare, his small hands trembling as he gripped the edge of the table. You like eggs, son? Caleb asked him. Benny didn't answer. He don't talk much, Clara said. Not to strangers. That's all right. Don't have to talk to eat. Caleb served the eggs onto tin plates, added thick slices of bread and cups of milk for the children. He poured coffee for Maggie and himself, then sat down at the far end of the table, leaving plenty of space between them. Eat up, he said. Long day ahead. What do you mean? Maggie asked. I mean those men from yesterday ain't going to give up. By now they've probably wired for reinforcements. We need a plan. We don't need your help with a plan, Sam said through a mouthful of eggs. Sam, manners. What? It's true. Caleb took a sip of his coffee, seemingly unbothered by Sam's hostility. Maybe you don't need my help, but you're in my house, eating my food, and those men are looking for you. Seems to me that makes it my business whether you like it or not. We can leave. Where would you go? Sam opened his mouth, then closed it. He didn't have an answer. That's what I thought. Caleb set down his cup. Look, I ain't trying to take over your lives. I'm just saying, we need to think this through. How much do those men know about where you went? Maggie considered. They know we came to Silver Creek. They probably know we went to the boarding house. Martha lied to them, but they'll figure out the truth soon enough. They know about me? I don't think so. Martha didn't mention you by name, and we left through the back. Good. That buys us some time. Caleb drummed his fingers on the table, thinking. They'll search the town first, question everyone. Someone might have seen us leaving, but most folks in Silver Creek mind their own business. Still, it won't take them long to figure out you ain't there anymore. Then they'll start looking outside town, Clara said. Caleb looked at her with something like approval. Smart girl. Yeah, they'll expand the search, but this territory's big, and they don't know which direction you went. Could be days before they think to come out this far. Days ain't a lot of time. No, it ain't. That's why we need a plan. What kind of plan? Maggie asked. I've been thinking on that. Caleb hesitated, like he was choosing his words carefully. Your problem ain't just those men. It's the law. You said the judge got a court order declaring you unfit. That means even if you get away from these particular men, he can just send more. And eventually, the real law might get involved. I know. So running ain't a long-term solution. I know that too. Then what you need is legal protection. Something that makes it harder for him to take your boys. Like what? Caleb was quiet for a moment. I ain't a lawyer. I don't know all the ins and outs. But I know this much. A woman alone is vulnerable. The law don't look kindly on women trying to raise children without a man. It ain't right, but it's how things are. So what are you suggesting? I'm suggesting we need to change your situation. Make you less vulnerable. Clara's eyes narrowed. How? I don't know yet, but I know someone who might. There's a lawyer in the next town over, man named Henry Dawson. He helped me with some land disputes a few years back. He's honest, which is rare, and he don't charge more than folks can afford. I can't afford anything, Maggie said flatly. I got 17 cents to my name. Then we'll work something out. I ain't taking charity. It ain't charity, it's... Caleb paused, seeming to search for the right word. It's an investment. In what? In doing the right thing. He met her eyes. Look, Mrs. Sullivan, I got money saved up. Not a lot, but enough. I ain't got anyone to spend it on anymore. If I can use some of it to help keep your family together, that seems like a worthwhile use. Why do you care so much about our family? The question hung in the air. Caleb didn't answer right away. He stared into his coffee cup like it held some answer he couldn't quite articulate. Because I had a family once, he said finally, and I would have given everything I had to keep them safe. Everything. But I couldn't. Wasn't nothing I could do when... He stopped, swallowed hard. Wasn't nothing I could do. The kitchen fell silent. Rosie, who had been quietly eating her eggs, looked up at Caleb with wide eyes. What happened to your family? Rosie, Maggie said sharply, that's not polite to ask. It's all right. Caleb's voice was rough. My wife died, sweetheart. Her and my baby girl. A long time ago. That's sad. Yeah, it is. Do you miss them? Every day. Rosie considered this, her young face serious. My pa died too, but I don't miss him. Is that bad? Maggie's heart clenched. Caleb shook his head slowly. No, sweetheart, that ain't bad. Sometimes people don't deserve to be missed. Mama says Pa was sick, that the drinking made him mean. That happens sometimes. Were you ever mean? Rosie, that's enough, Maggie said. I just want to know. Caleb met the little girl's eyes with complete honesty. I've been angry before. Real angry. After my wife died, I was angry at the whole world. But I never took it out on anyone who didn't deserve it. And I never, ever hurt a woman or a child. That ain't the kind of man I am. Promise? Promise. Rosie nodded, apparently satisfied. She went back to her eggs. Sam hadn't said a word through this whole exchange. He was watching Caleb with an expression Maggie couldn't quite read. Not hostile anymore, but not trusting either. Something in between. "You really lost your family?" Sam asked quietly. "Yeah." "And you never got over it?" "No. You don't get over something like that. You just learn to live with it. Carry it around with you like a stone in your pocket. Some days it's heavier than others." Sam was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I don't want my ma to be a stone in someone's pocket." "Neither do I. That's why I'm trying to help." After breakfast, Caleb suggested Maggie come with him to town to meet the lawyer. The children would stay at the ranch. "I ain't leaving my children here alone," Maggie said immediately. "They won't be alone. Martha's coming out to watch them." "Martha? How?" "I rode out before dawn to ask her. She'll be here within the hour." Maggie stared at him. "You rode all the way to Silver Creek and back before we even woke up?" "Couldn't sleep anyway." "That's a 4-hour round trip." "I'm aware." She didn't know what to say to that. Clara had plenty to say. "You're leaving us with a stranger?" "Martha ain't a stranger. She hid you in her cellar." "That don't mean I want her watching us." "Clara." Maggie's voice was firm. "Miss Martha risked a lot to help us. You'll treat her with respect." "I always treat people with respect. I just don't trust them." "Then be politely distrustful. Can you manage that?" Clara scowled, but nodded. When Martha arrived, she brought supplies: fresh bread, a ham, vegetables from someone's garden, and the bag of peppermint sticks that made Rosie's eyes go wide. "You spoil them," Maggie said. "Ain't spoilin' to give children treats. It's called being a decent human being." Martha pulled Maggie aside while the children descended on the peppermint. "How are you holding up?" "I don't know. It's all happening so fast." "That's how life works out here. You make decisions quick, or you don't survive." "I'm not sure I know how to make decisions anymore. For so long, Thomas made all of them. And then, after he died, I was just reacting, running, never stopping long enough to think." "Well, you've stopped now. Time to start thinking." Maggie glanced at Caleb, who was saddling 2 horses outside. "What do you know about him? Really?" "Caleb?" Martha smiled. "I know he's the most decent man in 3 counties. I know he works harder than anyone I've ever met. I know he ain't had a woman in his life since Sarah died, and I know plenty have tried." She paused. "I also know he sees something in you, something that's made him come alive again in a way I ain't seen in years. I'm not looking for, I know you ain't, and I don't think he is either. But sometimes things find us, whether we're looking or not." The ride to town took about an hour. Caleb had given Maggie a gentle mare named Molly, and she managed to stay in the saddle despite her limited experience. "You're doing good," Caleb said. "Better than I expected." "I had to learn quick when we were running. Couldn't always afford train tickets." "You children know how to ride?" "Clara does. She picked it up fastest." Sam refuses to admit he's scared of horses. Rosie thinks they're all unicorns in disguise. And Benny... She trailed off. "Benny what?" "Benny used to love horses, before Thomas. Now he's scared of most everything." Caleb was quiet for a moment. "He ever been on a horse since?" "No. I tried once, but he screamed so loud I thought he'd make himself sick." "Might help him, getting back on, facing the fear." "Or it might break him worse than he's already broken." "You really think he's broken?" Maggie felt tears prick her eyes. "Sometimes. Sometimes I look at him, and I don't see my little boy anymore. I see what his father did to him. What I let happen. You didn't let anything happen. I stayed. 8 years, I stayed. Leaving ain't as easy as people think. How would you know? Caleb didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was low. Because my father was the same kind of man, and my mother stayed too, until the day he killed her. Maggie's breath caught. I was 12, Caleb continued, old enough to understand what was happening, but too young to stop it. After she died, I ran away, joined the army as soon as they'd take me, spent years trying to forget. Did you forget? No, but I learned something. My mother stayed because she thought she was protecting us kids. She thought if she took the beatings, he'd leave us alone. She was wrong, of course. Men like that don't leave anyone alone. But she believed it. She believed she was doing the right thing. Is that supposed to make me feel better? It's supposed to make you understand that you ain't the first mother who made hard choices to protect her children. And you ain't a bad person for not knowing how to get out. They rode in silence for a while. Your father, Maggie said eventually. What happened to him? He died, year after my mother. Drank himself to death. Did you go back? For the funeral? No. I hope he died alone and scared. I hope he suffered. Caleb's voice was flat, without emotion. Some people might say that's unchristian of me. But I ain't a Christian, and I ain't gonna pretend to forgive what can't be forgiven. The lawyer's office was a small building on the main street of Cooperstown, the next town over from Silver Creek. Henry Dawson was a thin man in his 60s with spectacles and a kind face. Caleb Mercer, he said, shaking hands. Been a while. This is Mrs. Sullivan. She needs help. Dawson listened as Maggie explained her situation. The marriage, the abuse, Thomas's death, Blackwood's claim on her children, the court order, the men pursuing her. When she finished, Dawson removed his spectacles and rubbed his eyes. That's quite a situation, Mrs. Sullivan. Is there anything you can do? Depends on how far this Judge Blackwood is willing to go. You say he has a court order from Ohio? Yes. Ohio's jurisdiction doesn't automatically extend to Colorado territory. He'd need to petition the local courts here. That takes time and money, even for a judge. So we're safe? I didn't say that. I said it takes time. If he's determined enough and wealthy enough, he can make it happen. Eventually. What can we do to fight it? Dawson was quiet for a moment, thinking. The court order declares you unfit. To overturn it, we'd need to prove otherwise. Character witnesses, evidence of stable employment and housing, proof that you can provide for your children. I can provide for them. I've been providing for them. Running isn't providing, Mrs. Sullivan. Not in the eyes of the law. What you need is stability, a permanent home, a job, roots in a community. I don't have any of those things. Then you need to get them. Caleb spoke up for the first time. She could work at my ranch. Both Maggie and Dawson turned to look at him. My ranch, Caleb repeated. I need help with the housekeeping, the cooking. I've been doing it myself, but I ain't any good at it. I could pay fair wages, room and board included. Mr. Mercer, Maggie started. It's an honest job, nothing improper about it. You'd be an employee, nothing more. People would talk. People always talk. Doesn't mean we have to listen. Dawson was nodding slowly. He's got a point. Stable employment with a respected local rancher would go a long way in any custody hearing. And if the children are living there too, receiving proper care and education... Education, Maggie said suddenly. Clara and Sam need schooling. Is there a school nearby? There's a teacher in Silver Creek, Miss Patterson. She runs classes out of the church 3 days a week. Small operation, but reputable. That would work. Caleb was warming to the idea. I could take them in on school days. It's not far. Maggie's head was spinning. Everything was moving so fast. 24 hours ago, she'd been hiding under a train platform. Now she was discussing employment and education and legal strategies. I need to think about this, she said. Of course. Dawson stood and offered his hand. Take your time, Mrs. Sullivan, but not too much time. If Blackwood's men are already here, he won't be far behind. They rode back to the ranch in the late afternoon. Maggie's mind was churning with everything they'd discussed. You didn't have to do that, she said finally. Do what? Offer me a job. Make all those plans. Would you rather I hadn't? I don't know. It feels like... She struggled to find the words. It feels like you're trying to save me. Is that so bad? I don't need saving. I need a chance. There's a difference. Caleb considered this. Fair enough. Then think of it as a chance, a job offer. You can accept it or not. Your choice. And if I say no? Then I'll help you find something else, some other way. Why? Because it's the right thing to do. That's not an answer. Caleb pulled his horse to a stop, turned to face her fully. All right. You want the real answer? Here it is. I've been alone for 6 years. 6 years of waking up in an empty house. 6 years of working myself to exhaustion just so I don't have to think about what I lost. I ain't living. I'm just existing. Maggie didn't speak. When I saw you at that station, something woke up in me. I don't know what to call it. Hope, maybe. Or purpose. For the first time in years, I felt like there was a reason to do something more than just survive. He paused. I ain't asking for anything in return. I ain't expecting you to feel the same way. I'm just telling you why. That's a lot to put on a stranger. You ain't a stranger. Not anymore. They reached the ranch as the sun was setting. Martha met them at the door, looking worried. What happened? Maggie asked immediately. Are the children okay? They're fine, but there's news from town. Martha glanced at Caleb. A man came into the general store this afternoon, asking about a woman with 4 children. Said he was from Ohio. Said he was family. Maggie's blood ran cold. What did he look like? 50s, gray hair, expensive clothes. Walked like he owned the world. Blackwood. The name came out as a whisper. He's here. He came himself. Caleb's expression hardened. Did anyone tell him anything? Don't know, but it won't take long for word to spread. Folks in town know you brought a woman and children out this way. Someone will talk. Maggie pushed past them into the house. Her children were in the kitchen, playing cards by lamplight. They looked up when she entered. Mama? Clara's face went pale. What's wrong? Nothing. Everything's fine. You're lying. I can always tell when you're lying. Your uncle's in Silver Creek. He came himself. The effect was immediate. Sam went rigid. Clara's hand flew to Rosie's shoulder, pulling her close. Benny made a small sound of terror and pressed himself against the wall. He can't find us here, Sam said. He can't. He might. People know we came this direction. Then we run again. Running hasn't worked, Sam. We've been running for 3 weeks, and he keeps finding us. So what do we do? Maggie looked at her children. At their scared faces, their thin bodies, their eyes that had seen too much. We fight, she said. We stay here and we fight. How? I don't know yet, but I'm done running. I'm done letting that man control our lives. Caleb stepped into the doorway behind her. You won't be fighting alone. Sam turned on him. This ain't your fight. It is now. Your uncle's in my territory, threatening my... He paused, seemed to catch himself. threatening people under my protection. That makes it my fight. We ain't under your protection. Sam, Maggie's voice was sharp. Enough. No, it ain't enough. Sam's voice cracked, caught between anger and fear. Everyone keeps saying they want to help, but nobody can stop him. He's a judge. He's got money and men and the law on his side. What do we have? Nothing. You have each other, Caleb said quietly. That ain't nothing. It ain't enough. Maybe not, but it's a start. Clara stepped forward. What's the plan? You keep talking about fighting, but what does that actually mean? Caleb looked at Maggie. She nodded. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to ride into Silver Creek, he said. Find out what Blackwood's been saying, who he's been talking to. Figure out his next move. And then what? Then we get ahead of him. Mrs. Sullivan, you said he got a court order in Ohio. He'll need to file it with the local courts here to make it enforceable. That takes time. While he's doing that, we build our case. Get you established. Find witnesses. Gather evidence. Evidence of what? Evidence that you're a fit mother, that your children are safe and cared for, that this Blackwood has no rightful claim to them. Clara's eyes narrowed. And what if that doesn't work? What if the judge here sides with him? Caleb met her gaze steadily. Then we figure out something else. Like what? I don't know yet, but I ain't gonna let him take your brothers. You got my word on that. Your word. Clara's voice was bitter. I've heard a lot of words in my life. They don't mean much. Fair enough. Guess I'll have to prove it. The tension stretched between them. Two people who had learned to trust no one, staring each other down. Finally, Clara turned away. Fine. We'll see. That night, after the children were asleep, Maggie found herself on the porch, staring at the stars. The sky was different out here than it had been in Ohio. Bigger somehow. More full of possibility. The door creaked behind her. Caleb stepped out, 2 cups of coffee in his hands. Thought you might want this. Thank you. They stood in silence, drinking their coffee, watching the night sky. I should apologize, Maggie said eventually. For Clara. She's not usually so... She's protecting her family. Nothing to apologize for. She's 12 years old. She shouldn't have to be so hard. Life makes us what we are. Caleb took a sip of his coffee. She reminds me of me at that age, after my mother died. I didn't trust anyone for years. What changed? I met Sarah, my wife. She was the first person who didn't want anything from me, just wanted to know me, the real me, underneath all the anger and fear. And you let her in? Eventually. Took a long time. I pushed her away more times than I can count. But she kept coming back. His voice softened. She said I was worth fighting for. I never believed her. Not until it was too late. Maggie felt tears prick her eyes. You loved her very much. More than anything. He paused. I used to think I'd never feel that way again. That part of me died with her. And now? Caleb turned to look at her. In the moonlight, his face was all planes and shadows, impossible to read. Now I'm not so sure. Maggie's heart stuttered. I ain't trying to scare you, he said quickly. I ain't expecting nothing. He shook his head. I don't know how to do this anymore. It's been so long since I felt anything besides grief. I don't know how to do this either. Maggie's voice was barely a whisper. I married the wrong man once. I can't afford to make that mistake again. I ain't Thomas. I know you're not. But I don't know what you are. Not yet. Then take the time you need to figure it out. I ain't going anywhere. They stood there in the darkness, not touching, barely breathing, the space between them charged with something neither of them could name. Finally, Maggie stepped back. I should check on the children. Yeah, I should. I'll be in the barn if you need anything. She watched him walk away, his tall figure disappearing into the shadows. Something in her chest ached with a longing she hadn't felt in years. But there was no time for longing. Not now. Blackwood was here. The fight was coming. She went inside, checked on each of her sleeping children, and lay down in the bed that still smelled faintly of lavender. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight, for just a moment, she let herself imagine a different future. One where she wasn't running. One where her children were safe. One where she could let herself feel something besides fear. It was probably just a dream, but sometimes dreams were the only things that kept you going. She closed her eyes, and somewhere in the darkness, a rider approached the ranch, moving quiet as a ghost through the sleeping land. The rider stopped 50 feet from the house. Caleb had heard him coming. Years of war and living alone had taught him to sleep light, to wake at the smallest sound. He was out of the barn before the horse's hooves fell silent, rifle in hand, positioning himself between the stranger and the house. "That's far enough." The rider raised his hands slowly. "Easy, friend. I ain't looking for trouble." "Then you came to the wrong place. State your business." "I'm looking for Caleb Mercer." "You found him." "Name's Will Thornton. I work for Judge Blackwood." Caleb's finger tightened on the trigger. "Then you definitely came to the wrong place." "Wait." Thornton's voice was urgent. "I ain't here to cause harm. I got information about what the judge is planning." "Why would one of Blackwood's men give me information?" "Because I ain't really one of his men. I'm a Pinkerton. Been working undercover for 3 months, investigating Blackwood's activities." Caleb didn't lower the rifle. "You got proof?" Thornton reached slowly into his jacket, pulled out a folded paper. "Badge and credentials. You can check them in the morning with the telegraph office. But right now, you need to hear what I got to say." "I'm listening." "Blackwood ain't just here for those children. He's here to make an example. The Sullivan woman embarrassed him by running. A judge's sister-in-law defying his authority? He can't let that stand. He's planning to have her arrested tomorrow morning. Got a warrant sworn out. Says she kidnapped his brother's children. She's their mother. Don't matter to him. He's got papers saying otherwise." Thornton paused. "But that ain't the worst of it. What's worse than having her arrested? He ain't planning to take all 4 kids back to Ohio. Just the boys. The girls—" Thornton's voice dropped. "I heard him talking to his men. Said girls were useless. Said he'd have them placed in an institution, orphanage, or worse." The blood drained from Caleb's face. "He'd separate them?" Without a second thought. To him, those children ain't people, they're property, and he only wants the property that's useful to him. The front door of the house opened. Maggie stood there in her nightdress, a lantern in one hand. "Caleb, what's happening?" "Go back inside." "I heard voices. Who's out there?" Thornton stepped forward into the light. "Mrs. Sullivan, my name's Will Thornton. I'm a Pinkerton agent. I've been investigating your brother-in-law." Maggie's face went white. "Blackwood sent you?" "No, ma'am. The Pinkerton sent me. Blackwood's been under suspicion for years. Corruption, bribery, abuse of power. But he's careful. Hard to catch. Your case might be the key to bringing him down." "I don't understand." "Come inside," Caleb said. "Both of you. We need to talk." They gathered around the kitchen table, Thornton spreading out papers he'd brought with him. Maggie had woken Clara, who sat beside her mother, with suspicious eyes fixed on the stranger. "Blackwood's been using his position for personal gain for over a decade," Thornton explained. "Taking bribes, manipulating court decisions, destroying anyone who crosses him. But he's smart. He never leaves evidence. Until now. What changed? Caleb asked. You, Mrs. Sullivan. When you ran, he got careless. He's so obsessed with getting those boys back that he's making mistakes. Bringing hired guns across state lines. Falsifying legal documents. Threatening witnesses. Thornton tapped the papers. I've got records of all of it. Enough to get him investigated. Maybe even disbarred. Then why haven't you moved against him? Clara demanded. Thornton looked at her with something like respect. Because I needed him to come here. To commit crimes in a jurisdiction where he don't have friends in high places. Colorado Territory's got honest lawmen. If I can get Blackwood to act against your mother here, on record, with witnesses. You're using us as bait, Maggie said flatly. I'm giving you a chance to fight back. Look, Mrs. Sullivan, I could have stayed hidden. Let this play out however it was going to play out. Instead, I'm here, in the middle of the night, warning you about what's coming. That should tell you which side I'm on. It tells me you need something from us. I need you to be brave. Tomorrow morning, when Blackwood's men come with that warrant, I need you to not run. I need you to let them serve it. Let them think they've won. And then? And then I step in with federal authority. The territorial marshal's already been contacted. He'll be here by noon with papers of his own. Papers that put Blackwood under investigation and void any warrants he's issued. Clara shook her head. That's too risky. What if the marshal doesn't get here in time? What if Blackwood takes Sam and Benny before anyone can stop him? That's where Mr. Mercer comes in. Thornton turned to Caleb. You're a respected man in this community. War hero. Honest rancher. No criminal record. If you vouch for Mrs. Sullivan, if you stand with her when the warrant's served, it buys time. Makes it harder for Blackwood to just grab the children and disappear. You want me to obstruct a legal warrant? I want you to demand proper procedure. Insist on a hearing before any children are removed. That's not obstruction. That's due process. And it gives the marshal time to arrive. Caleb looked at Maggie. She was pale, trembling, but her jaw was set with determination. What do you think? He asked. I think I'm tired of running. Her voice was steady, despite her shaking hands. I think if there's a chance to end this, really end it, I have to take it. Even if it means risking everything? I'm already risking everything. Every day I spend looking over my shoulder. Every night my children go to bed scared. That's not living. That's just dying slow. Clara grabbed her mother's hand. Ma, you can't. If this goes wrong, we're no worse off than we already are. But if it goes right, Maggie squeezed her daughter's fingers. If it goes right, we're free. Really free. Forever. It's too dangerous. Living is dangerous. That don't mean we stop doing it. Thornton stood up. I need to get back before anyone notices I'm gone. But I'll be there tomorrow when the marshal arrives. You won't be alone in this. Wait, Caleb caught his arm. You said Blackwood's got men. How many? 3 that I know of, plus Pike. Pike? Ezra Pike, former Confederate. Mean as a snake and twice as poisonous. He's Blackwood's enforcer. Does the dirty work the judge don't want connected to his name. What kind of dirty work? Thornton hesitated. The kind that don't leave witnesses. After the Pinkerton left, Maggie sat at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. Clara had gone back to bed, but sleep was impossible. Her mind kept churning through everything Thornton had said. Caleb sat down across from her. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. There are other ways. We could take the children and go further west. California, maybe. Somewhere Blackwood would never find you. He'd find us. He found us here, didn't he? He'll never stop. Not unless someone stops him. She looked up, meeting Caleb's eyes. This is the only way. It could go wrong. I know. You could lose your children. I know. Then why? Maggie was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. Because my children need to see me fight. They need to know that their mother isn't just a victim, that she's someone who stands up, even when it's hard, even when it's terrifying. She wiped her eyes. I spent 8 years letting Thomas beat me down, letting him make me small. My children watched that. They learned that's what women do. That's what mothers do. Take the pain and stay quiet, and hope it gets better. That wasn't your fault. Maybe not, but it's my responsibility to show them something different now, to show them that I can be brave, that I can fight back. She reached across the table and took his hand. Will you help me? Caleb's fingers closed around hers. You know I will. Even if it costs you, your reputation, your standing in the community? I don't care about any of that. You should. You've built something good here. A life. I have no right to ask you to risk it. You ain't asking. I'm offering. He squeezed her hand. Whatever happens tomorrow, we face it together. You and me and those 4 children. That's how it's going to be. For the first time in weeks, Maggie smiled. It was small and fragile, but it was real. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. We still got to get through tomorrow. Morning came too fast. Maggie woke the children early, fed them breakfast, tried to prepare them for what was coming. Sam and Clara understood immediately. Their faces went hard, ready for battle. Rosie didn't fully grasp the danger, but she sensed her mother's fear and stayed close. Benny said nothing, just held onto his tattered stuffed rabbit and watched everything with huge, haunted eyes. Listen to me, Maggie said, kneeling in front of them. Some men are going to come here today. Bad men. They're going to say they want to take you away from me. We won't go, Sam said fiercely. You might not have a choice, not at first, but I need you to trust me. No matter what happens, no matter what they say or do, remember that I love you. Remember that I'm fighting for you. And remember that this isn't over until I say it's over. What if they hurt you? Clara's voice was tight. Then you take care of each other. You stay together, no matter what. Promise me. I promise. Sam? I promise. Rosie? Benny? Rosie nodded solemnly. Benny just pressed closer to his mother, his small body shaking. The sound of horses made everyone freeze. Caleb appeared in the doorway. They're here. 4 men. Blackwood's with them. Maggie stood slowly, smoothing her dress, squaring her shoulders. Children, go to the bedroom. Stay there until I come get you. Ma, Sam started. Go, now. Clara grabbed Sam's arm, pulled him toward the back of the house. Rosie followed, clutching Benny's hand. The bedroom door closed with a soft click. Maggie walked onto the porch. Judge Horace Blackwood sat on a fine black horse, looking exactly as she remembered. Gray hair, cold eyes, an expression of smug superiority. 3 men flanked him, hard-faced and armed. One of them, she noticed, had a scar running down his cheek. Pike. Margaret. Blackwood's voice was pleasant, almost warm. You've led us on quite a chase. I have nothing to say to you. Oh, I think you do. But it doesn't matter. I have a warrant here, signed by a proper judge, authorizing me to take custody of Samuel and Benjamin Sullivan. He produced a paper from his coat. This unpleasantness is over, Margaret. Accept it gracefully. There's nothing graceful about stealing children from their mother. Stealing, Blackwood laughed. I'm saving them. From poverty, from instability, from you. Caleb stepped up beside Maggie. The lady asked you to leave. Blackwood's eyes narrowed. And who are you? Caleb Mercer. This is my property. You're trespassing. I'm serving a legal warrant. That's not trespassing. It's justice. Justice. Caleb's voice was hard. Is that what you call it? Chasing a woman across 3 states. Sending armed men after children. I call it family duty. Those boys are Sullivan's, my brother's sons. They belong with their family. They belong with their mother. Their mother is unfit. The courts have ruled. Courts you control. Rulings you bought. Maggie stepped forward, surprised by the steadiness of her own voice. I know what you are, Horace. I know what you've done, and I'm not afraid of you anymore. Something flickered in Blackwood's eyes. Surprise, maybe, or anger. You should be afraid, Margaret. You should be very afraid. He gestured to his men. Search the house. Bring me the boys. Caleb's hand moved to his holster. I wouldn't. Pike's hand moved faster. Before anyone could react, he had a pistol aimed at Caleb's chest. Go ahead, Pike said, his voice soft and dangerous. Give me a reason. That's enough. Blackwood's voice was sharp. No shooting. Not yet. We do this legally. He turned back to Maggie. Where are the children? Safe. They won't be safe for long if you don't cooperate. I can make this easy, or I can make it hard. Your choice. You want to take my children? You'll have to go through me. Blackwood smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. If you insist. He dismounted, walked toward the porch with measured steps. Maggie stood her ground, heart pounding, refusing to back away. You always were stubborn, Blackwood said quietly, stopping just in front of her. Thomas complained about it constantly, said you never knew your place. My place is with my children. Your place is where I say it is. His voice dropped, became almost intimate. You think you can fight me, Margaret? You think anyone will believe you over a judge? I've destroyed better people than you. I've ruined careers, ended lives, broken families. And I've never lost. Not once. There's a first time for everything. Blackwood's hand shot out and grabbed her arm, fingers digging in hard enough to bruise. You will tell me where those children are, or I will... Let go of her! The voice came from behind Blackwood. He turned, still gripping Maggie's arm. Clara stood in the doorway of the house, a rifle in her hands, pointed directly at Blackwood's chest. Clara, no, Maggie started. I said let go of my mother. Blackwood stared at the 12-year-old girl with something approaching disbelief. Put that down, child, before you hurt yourself. I know how to shoot. Caleb taught me. And at this range, I don't even have to aim. Pike started to move. Clara shifted the rifle toward him without looking away from Blackwood. Your friend moves another inch. I'll shoot him instead. Your choice. Clara! Maggie's voice was steady, despite the terror coursing through her. Put the gun down. Not until he lets you go. This is touching, Blackwood said, his voice dripping with contempt. The little girl playing hero. But you won't shoot me. You don't have it in you. Clara's jaw tightened. You don't know what I have in me. You don't know what I've seen, what I've survived. My father hit my mother every day for 8 years. I watched her bleed. I watched her cry. I watched her almost die. Her voice cracked, but held. I will not watch another man hurt her, not ever again. For a long moment, no one moved. Then, slowly, Blackwood released Maggie's arm. Smart girl, he said softly. But this isn't over. Not by a long shot. The sound of approaching horses made everyone turn. A group of riders was coming down the road toward the ranch. At the head was a man with a silver badge gleaming on his chest. "That would be the territorial marshal," said a new voice. Thornton stepped out from behind the barn, a satisfied smile on his face. "Right on time." The marshal's name was James Harding, and he was not impressed with Judge Horace Blackwood. "Your warrant's no good here," he said, barely glancing at the paper Blackwood thrust at him. "I've got federal orders suspending all custody actions involving the Sullivan children until a proper investigation can be conducted." "Investigation? Into what?" "Into you, Judge. Allegations of corruption, bribery, falsification of legal documents." Harding's voice was flat, unimpressed by Blackwood's sputtering outrage. "You're to return to Ohio immediately and make yourself available for questioning." "This is outrageous. I'm a sitting judge. You can't—" "I can, and I am. The Pinkerton Agency has been building a case against you for months. Your little expedition out here gave them everything they needed." Blackwood's face went purple with rage. "That woman stole my brother's children. She—" "That woman is their mother, and from what I've heard, she was protecting them from their father's violence. That ain't stealing. That's parenting." "You'll regret this. All of you. I have powerful friends." "Your powerful friends can't help you out here, Judge. This is the frontier. We do things different." Harding gestured to his men. "Escort Judge Blackwood and his associates back to Silver Creek. Make sure they catch the next train east." Pike moved toward Maggie, his face twisted with hatred. "This ain't over." Caleb stepped between them. "Yeah, it is. Touch her again and I'll kill you myself." Big talk from a small man. "Try me." For a heartbeat, violence hung in the air. Then Pike spat on the ground and turned away, following Blackwood toward the horses. Maggie watched them go, barely able to believe what was happening. After weeks of running, of terror, of looking over her shoulder at every moment, it was over. Really, truly over. Her legs gave out. Caleb caught her before she hit the ground, holding her tight against his chest. "Easy, I've got you." "Is it real?" she whispered. "Is it really over?" "It's real. He's gone. He can't hurt you anymore." Clara appeared beside them, the rifle still clutched in her white-knuckled hands. "Ma? Ma, are you okay?" Maggie reached for her daughter, pulled her close. "I'm okay, baby. I'm okay." "I almost shot him. I really almost shot him." "I know. I know." Maggie stroked Clara's hair, feeling her daughter tremble against her.
"You were so brave. So incredibly brave."
"I was scared." "Being scared and doing it anyway. That's what brave means." Sam and Rosie and Benny came out of the house, hovering uncertainly. Maggie opened her arms, and they rushed into them, all 5 of them tangled together in a desperate embrace. "It's over," Maggie said, saying it again and again, as if repetition could make it more true. "It's over. We're safe. We're finally safe." The marshal approached, hat in hand. "Mrs. Sullivan, I'll need you to come into Silver Creek in the next few days. Give a formal statement. There'll be proceedings against Blackwood, and your testimony will be important." "Of course. Whatever you need." "And for what it's worth, ma'am, I'm sorry this happened to you. No mother should have to go through what you went through."
"No," Maggie agreed. "No mother should."
After the marshal and his men left, after Thornton had given his contact information and ridden away, after the dust had settled and the silence returned, Maggie found herself standing on the porch of Caleb Mercer's ranch, watching her children explore their new surroundings with something like wonder. Benny was petting one of the horses through the corral fence, the first time he'd voluntarily approached an animal in months. Rosie was chasing butterflies. Sam and Clara sat together on the fence rail, not talking, just being together. Safe. Finally safe. Caleb came to stand beside her. "How do you feel?" "I don't know." She laughed shakily. "Relieved? Terrified? Grateful? All of it at once." "That sounds about right." "What happens now?" "Now?" He looked out at the children, at the land, at the wide open sky. "Now we live. Simple as that." "Nothing about this is simple." "Maybe not, but it's real. And real is enough." Maggie turned to face this man who had helped them when he had no reason to, who had stood by them when it cost him everything, who had opened his home and his heart to a broken family with nothing to offer in return. "Caleb Mercer, I don't know how to thank you." "Don't want your thanks." "What do you want?" He was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough with emotion. "I want to watch your children grow up. I want to hear laughter in this house again. I want to wake up every morning knowing there's someone to wake up for." He paused. "I want you to stay, all of you, not because you need protection, but because you want to, because this feels like home." Maggie's eyes filled with tears. "It does feel like home," she whispered. "I didn't think I'd ever feel that again." "Is that a yes?" "It's a maybe. A strong maybe." She smiled through her tears. "Give me time?" "All the time in the world." He reached out, slow and careful, and took her hand. She let him. And there, on the porch of a small ranch in Colorado Territory, with the sun warm on their faces and the future stretching out before them like an open road, Maggie Sullivan finally let herself believe that happy endings weren't just for fairy tales. Sometimes, if you were brave enough to fight for them, they could be real. 3 weeks passed, and the ranch began to feel less like a hiding place and more like a home. Maggie fell into a rhythm she hadn't known since before her marriage. Mornings started with breakfast around the big kitchen table, all 6 of them crowded together, elbows bumping, voices overlapping. Caleb taught Sam how to milk the cow. Clara helped Maggie in the kitchen. Rosie collected eggs from the henhouse, naming each chicken and crying when one went missing to a coyote. And Benny, slowly, painfully slowly, began to speak again. "Mama, can I help Mr. Caleb with the horses?" It was the longest sentence he'd spoken in months. Maggie had to turn away so he wouldn't see her tears. "Of course, baby. If Mr. Caleb says it's okay." "He already said yes. He said I could brush them." "Then go on. Just be careful." She watched through the kitchen window as her youngest son walked toward the barn, his small shoulders straight, his steps hesitant but determined. Caleb met him at the door, crouching down to his level, speaking words Maggie couldn't hear but could imagine. Patient words, gentle words, the kind of words Thomas had never known how to say. "He's good with them." Maggie turned to find Clara behind her, watching the same scene. "Yes, he is. I didn't think I'd ever say this, but—" Clara paused, struggling. "I think I was wrong about him." "That's a big admission." "I know." Clara sat down at the table, her fingers tracing patterns in the worn wood. "I keep waiting for something bad to happen, for him to change, show his true colors." "And?" "And nothing. He just keeps being good." "It's confusing." Maggie sat down across from her daughter. "Not all men are like your father, Clara." "My head knows that. My heart hasn't caught up yet." "Give it time." "How much time? How long before I stop flinching when he raises his voice? How long before I stop checking the exits whenever I enter a room? I don't know. Maybe always. Maybe some things don't fully heal. Maggie reached across the table and took Clara's hand. But that doesn't mean we can't be happy. It just means we carry our scars with us. They become part of who we are. That's not very comforting. It's not meant to be comforting. It's meant to be true. Clara was quiet for a moment. Then, "Do you love him?" The question caught Maggie off guard. "What?" "Caleb, do you love him?" I don't know. I care for him. I respect him. I trust him, which is more than I thought I'd ever say about any man again. But love? Love takes time, Clara. Real love, the kind that lasts. It doesn't happen in a few weeks. It happened with Pa. The words hung in the air, sharp and painful. What I felt for your father wasn't love, Maggie said quietly. I thought it was at the time. But looking back, I think it was just desperation. I was young and scared and alone, and he seemed like safety. I mistook need for love. And with Caleb? With Caleb, it's different. I don't need him to survive. I want him around because he makes things better, because he's kind to my children, because when I'm with him, I feel like myself again, the self I was before Thomas took her away. Clara nodded slowly. That sounds more real. It feels more real too, and that's what makes it terrifying. Sam's progress was slower than his brother's, but it was progress nonetheless. He still watched Caleb with suspicious eyes, still bristled at any suggestion of authority, still tested boundaries and pushed back against everything. But one afternoon, Maggie came out to the corral to find Sam and Caleb working together to mend a broken fence section. They weren't talking, just working side by side in companionable silence. Sam handed Caleb nails before he asked for them. Caleb showed Sam how to swing the hammer without hitting his thumb. Small things, simple things, the things fathers teach sons. He's not trying to replace him, you know. Sam looked up, startled. He hadn't heard a reproach. Replace who? Your father. I didn't have a father. I had a monster who lived in our house. The bitterness in his voice made Maggie's heart ache. Sam, don't try to make it better. Don't tell me he loved us in his own way, or that he was sick, or whatever excuse people make for men like him. He was mean because he wanted to be mean. End of story. I wasn't going to make excuses. Then what? I was going to say that you're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to hate him. You're allowed to grieve the father you should have had. Maggie moved closer, leaned against the fence rail. But you're also allowed to let someone else in. Someone who might actually deserve to be there. Sam's jaw tightened. I ain't calling him Pa. Nobody's asking you to. Good, because I won't. Caleb spoke up for the first time, his voice mild. I don't want you to call me Pa. Your pa was your pa, for better or worse. I'm just Caleb. That's enough for me. Sam studied him for a long moment. What do you want then? From us? From Ma? What's your angle? No angle. Everybody's got an angle. Maybe where you come from. Out here, some folks just do what's right, because it's right. No other reason. I don't believe that. I know you don't, and that's okay. You don't have to believe it. Just watch, pay attention, and maybe, eventually, you'll see it for yourself. Sam went back to hammering, but something in his posture had shifted. The rigid hostility had softened, just slightly, just enough. Maggie caught Caleb's eye across the fence. Thank you, she mouthed. He tipped his hat and went back to work. The nightmares didn't stop completely, but they became less frequent. Benny still woke screaming sometimes, trapped in terrors he couldn't name. But now, when Maggie rushed to comfort him, she wasn't always the first one there. Sometimes it was Clara, who had learned to wake at her brother's first whimper. Sometimes it was Sam, who would crawl into bed beside Benny and hold him until the shaking stopped. And once, just once, it was Caleb, who heard the screams from the barn and came running without thinking. "I'm sorry," Maggie said afterward, finding him on the porch in the gray light of early morning. "He didn't mean to wake you." "Don't apologize. Kid's got every right to have bad dreams after what he's been through." "It gets better. Slowly. Some weeks are worse than others."
What helps? Maggie considered. Feeling safe. Knowing we're not going to be hurt. Knowing there's always someone there when the bad things come. Then he's got all of that now. "Yes, thanks to you." Caleb shook his head. "Not me. You. You're the one who got them out, who kept them together, who ran across 3 states with nothing but the clothes on your back. I just opened a door." "You did more than that." "Maybe." He was quiet for a moment. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." "That night, at the boarding house, when you decided to come with me, what made you say yes? You didn't know me, didn't have any reason to trust me." Maggie thought back to that moment, the terror and desperation, and the tiny spark of something else she'd been too afraid to name. "Benny," she said finally. "Benny?" "He said you looked sad. It was the first thing he'd said in days, and I thought, a man who can make my son want to talk, even to say something that simple. Maybe that's a man worth taking a chance on." Caleb's expression softened. "He said I looked sad?" "You did. You still do sometimes, when you think no one's watching." "I suppose I am. Sad, I mean. But less than I used to be." "What changed?" He turned to look at her, really look at her, with those dark eyes that seemed to see everything and judge nothing. "You know what changed." The school in Silver Creek agreed to take all 4 children, though only Clara and Sam were old enough for the regular classes. Rosie and Benny attended the younger children's sessions, learning their letters and numbers alongside ranch kids and miners' daughters. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, Caleb hitched up the wagon and drove them into town. Maggie went too, at first, uncomfortable with letting her children out of her sight. But gradually, as the weeks passed, she began to stay at the ranch, began to trust that they would come back, began to believe that nothing bad would happen while they were gone. "You're hovering," Clara told her one morning, as Maggie fussed with her bonnet for the 3rd time. "I'm not hovering. I'm being a mother." "You're hovering. We'll be fine. We're always fine." "I know. You just can't stop worrying. I know, Ma. I understand. But you gotta let us go sometimes. Otherwise, we'll never learn to fly." Maggie stared at her daughter. "When did you get so wise?" "I've been watching you, learning from your mistakes." "That's not very kind." "It's not meant to be kind. It's meant to be true." Maggie laughed despite herself. "You're throwing my own words back at me." "Someone has to." On the wagon, with the children settled in the back, Caleb caught Maggie's eye. "You sure you don't want to come?" "I'm sure. I've got things to do here." "Like what?" "Like learning to be alone without being afraid," she smiled to soften the words. "I need to practice that." "All right. We'll be back by supper time." She watched the wagon roll away until it disappeared over the hill. Then she went inside, to the quiet house, and sat down at the kitchen table. Alone. The silence pressed against her ears, unfamiliar and uncomfortable. For weeks, she'd been surrounded by people, by voices, by life. Now there was just her and the ticking of the clock and the distant lowing of cattle. She waited for the panic to come,
The fear. The old instinct to run, to hide, to find her children and clutch them close and never let go. But it didn't come. Instead, she felt something else. Something that took her a moment to identify. Peace. She was safe. Her children were safe. And for the first time in years, she could sit in a quiet house and just breathe. Maggie closed her eyes and let the tears come. Tears of relief, of gratitude, of a grief finally allowed to release. She cried for the woman she'd been, the one who'd married Thomas Sullivan, thinking he would save her. She cried for the years of pain, the bruises hidden under long sleeves, the lies told to neighbors and family. She cried for her children and the childhood they'd lost. And then, when the tears were spent, she dried her eyes and stood up and started making bread. The Harvest Festival in Silver Creek came at the end of October. It was a small affair by Eastern standards, just a gathering in the town square with food and music and dancing. But to Maggie's children, who had never been allowed to attend such things, it was magical. "Can we go, Ma? Please?" Rosie bounced on her toes, her eyes bright with excitement. "Miss Patterson said there'll be a cake competition, and games, and dancing." "Dancing?" Sam made a face. "I ain't dancing." "You might change your mind," Clara said, "when you see Abigail Foster in her new dress." Sam's face went red. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you don't." Maggie looked at Caleb, who shrugged. "It's up to you, but the whole town will be there. Might be good for the kids to be seen. Show folks they're settling in." "What about Blackwood's men? What if someone recognizes us?" "Blackwood's in Ohio, facing a federal investigation. His men scattered weeks ago. Pikes reportedly fled to Mexico." Caleb's voice was gentle. "Maggie, it's over. You don't have to hide anymore." She knew he was right. She'd known it for weeks. But the old habits were hard to break, the old fears slow to fade. "All right," she said finally. "We'll go." The children's cheers nearly deafened her. The festival was everything Rosie had promised and more. Maggie watched her children blend into the crowd like they belonged there. Sam found a group of boys his age and was soon engaged in a serious competition involving horseshoes. Clara drifted toward a cluster of girls, shy at first, then opening up as they welcomed her into their circle. Rosie dragged Benny from booth to booth, marveling at candy apples and handmade dolls. And Benny, miracle of miracles, was smiling. "He looks happy." Maggie turned to find Martha Hutchins beside her, 2 cups of apple cider in hand. "He is happy. They all are." "And you?" Maggie accepted the cider. "I'm getting there." "Good. You deserve happiness, Maggie Sullivan. Don't let anyone tell you different." "Sometimes I don't believe that. That's the scars talking. They'll fade eventually. Not disappear, but fade. And the happiness will get louder than the pain." Martha clinked her cup against Maggie's. "Trust an old woman who's been through her share of sorrows." Across the square, Caleb was talking to a group of ranchers, but his eyes kept drifting toward Maggie. Every time their gazes met, something warm flickered between them. "That man loves you," Martha said matter-of-factly. "We've known each other less than 2 months. And I knew my husband for 3 weeks before we married. We had 40 good years together before he passed. That was different." "How?" Maggie didn't have an answer. The music started up, a lively fiddle tune that set feet tapping all across the square. Couples began to form, moving toward the cleared area that served as a dance floor. "Go on," Martha said, nudging her. "Ask him to dance." "I couldn't." "Why not?" "People will talk." "People are already talking. Have been since the day you arrived at his ranch. Might as well give them something nice to talk about instead of scandalous speculation." Before Maggie could protest further, Caleb appeared at her elbow. "May I have this dance?" She looked up at him, at this man who had saved her life and asked for nothing in return. at the sadness in his eyes that was slowly giving way to something brighter, at the hand he extended toward her, patient and hopeful. "I don't know how to dance," she admitted. "Thomas never let me learn." "Then I'll teach you, if you'll let me." She took his hand. He led her to the dance floor, positioning her hands on his shoulder and in his palm. "Just follow my lead. Don't think. Just feel." "That's easy for you to say." "It'll get easier, I promise." The music swelled around them, and they began to move. Maggie stumbled at first, too focused on her feet, too aware of the eyes watching them. But Caleb was patient, adjusting his steps to match hers, guiding her gently until the rhythm started to make sense. "There you go," he murmured. "You're doing fine." "I feel foolish." "You look beautiful." The words made her breath catch. "Caleb." "I know, too soon, too fast. But I've spent 6 years being careful with my feelings, and I'm tired of it. I'm tired of pretending I don't feel what I feel." "What do you feel?" He pulled her slightly closer, his voice dropping so only she could hear. "I feel like I've been asleep for a long time, and you woke me up. I feel like there's a reason you showed up at that station, on that day, when I happened to be there. I feel like maybe, just maybe, God decided to give us both a second chance." "I don't know if I believe in God anymore." "That's all right. I believe enough for both of us." The song ended, but they didn't move apart. The next tune started, slower this time, and they kept dancing, lost in each other, oblivious to the whispers and glances around them. "Ma!" Maggie turned to see Sam pushing through the crowd, his face urgent. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong, just come quick. You gotta see this." She followed Sam across the square, Caleb right behind her, to where a small crowd had gathered near the horseshoe pit. The crowd parted as she approached, and she saw Benny. Her youngest son was standing in the center of the group, a horseshoe in his hand. An old rancher was showing him how to grip it properly, how to aim, how to throw. And Benny was listening, nodding, his face serious with concentration. "He asked to learn," Sam whispered. "Just walked right up and asked. I about fell over." Benny threw the horseshoe. It arced through the air and landed with a clang, circling the stake perfectly. The crowd cheered, and Benny, her silent, traumatized, terrified little boy, threw his arms in the air and laughed. Maggie's knees buckled. Caleb caught her, held her upright. "You okay?" "He laughed," her voice broke. "Caleb, he laughed. He hasn't laughed since before Thomas." "I know. He's going to be okay. He's really going to be okay." They all are. Caleb's arm tightened around her. "You all are." Later that night, after the festival was over and the children were asleep in the wagon bed, Caleb drove them home under a sky full of stars. Maggie sat beside him on the wagon seat, closer than necessary, their shoulders touching. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For today. For all of it. For making my children feel like they belong somewhere." "They do belong. Here. With us." "With us." She tested the words, let them settle into her heart. "I like the sound of that." "Yeah?" "Yeah." Caleb was quiet for a moment. Then, "Maggie, I need to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly, even if the answer is no." Her heart rate spiked. "All right." "I know we talked about you staying, about working here, building a life here. But I want more than that. I want—" He took a breath. "I want you to marry me." The words hung in the night air, surrounded by stars and silence. "Caleb." "Let me finish. I ain't asking because I want to save you or protect you. You don't need saving. You've proved that 100 times over. I'm asking because I love you. Because waking up every morning, knowing you're under my roof, is the best feeling I've had in 6 years. Because your children have become my children, in my heart, if not in law. Because I want to spend whatever years I got left making you happy." Tears were streaming down Maggie's face. "It's so fast." "I know. People will say we're crazy." "Let them." "What if I'm not ready?" "Then I'll wait, as long as you need." "What if I'm never ready?" Caleb turned to look at her, his face soft in the starlight. "Then I'll still be here, still loving you, still grateful for every day I get to spend near you." He reached over and took her hand. "This ain't an ultimatum, Maggie. It's a promise. However you answer, I ain't going anywhere." She looked at him, at this man who had appeared in her darkest moment and offered light, who had protected her children and asked for nothing, who had opened his heart when he had every reason to keep it closed. Thomas had proposed with demands, with conditions, with expectations. Caleb proposed with love, pure, patient, unconditional love. "Yes," she whispered. His hand tightened on hers. "Yes?" "Yes, I'll marry you. Not because I need to. Because I want to. Because I love you too." Caleb pulled the wagon to a stop, turned to face her fully, cupped her face in his work-roughened hands. "Say it again. I love you." He kissed her then, under the vast Colorado sky, with their sleeping children in the wagon behind them, and the future stretching up before them like an endless road. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were crying. "We should tell the children," Maggie said, laughing through her tears. "In the morning." "Think they'll be okay with it?" "Rosie will want to be the flower girl. Benny will want to know if this means you're his pa now. Sam will pretend to be annoyed, but secretly be pleased."
She paused. "And Clara will want to make sure you know what you're getting into."
"She's protective. She's smart. She loves you." Caleb started the wagon moving again. "I'll win her over. Give me time." "You've already won her over. She just doesn't want to admit it yet." They rode the rest of the way home in comfortable silence, hands intertwined, hearts full. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, the wedding to plan, the children to tell, the community to face, the future to build. But tonight, there was just this. Two wounded people who had found each other against all odds. Two families becoming one. Two second chances colliding into something beautiful. The ranch house came into view, its windows dark, its walls sturdy, its doors open. Home. Finally, impossibly, wonderfully home. The morning sun had barely crested the horizon when Maggie woke to find Clara standing at the foot of her bed, arms crossed, eyes suspicious. "You're wearing his shirt." Maggie looked down. She was, in fact, wearing one of Caleb's flannel shirts over her nightgown. She'd been cold during the night, and he'd offered it, and she hadn't thought. "Nothing happened," she said quickly. "Caleb slept in the barn. Same as always." "Then why are you wearing his shirt?" "Because I was cold. Because he's kind. Because—" Maggie stopped, took a breath. "Because I said yes." Clara's expression didn't change. "Yes to what?" "He asked me to marry him. Last night. On the way home from the festival." The silence stretched between them, heavy and uncertain. "You said yes," Clara repeated flatly. "I did." "After 2 months." "After 2 months of seeing him be patient with your brothers. After 2 months of watching him treat me with respect. After 2 months of learning that not every man is your father." "And you think that's enough? 2 months?" "I think it's more than I had with Thomas. I knew him for a year before we married, and I didn't know him at all.
Not really. Maggie sat up, patting the bed beside her. Come here. Clara hesitated, then sat stiffly on the edge of the mattress. I'm not asking for your permission, Maggie said gently, but I am asking for your understanding. I know this is fast. I know it's scary. I know you have every reason to distrust any man who wants to be part of our lives. Then why are you doing it? Because I love him, and because I believe with everything I am that he loves us back. All of us, not just me. Love. Clara's voice was bitter. Pa said he loved us too. Your father didn't know what love meant. He used the word like a weapon, like a chain to keep us bound to him. That's not love. That's possession. How do you know Caleb's different? Because I've watched him every day for 2 months. I've watched him teach Sam to ride without losing his temper. I've watched him sit with Benny during nightmares without being asked. I've watched him respect your boundaries even when you push him away. I've watched him give and give and give without ever asking for anything in return. Clara's jaw tightened, but she didn't argue. I can't promise you he's perfect, Maggie continued. I can't promise nothing bad will ever happen. But I can promise you this. If I'm wrong about him, if he ever raises a hand to any of us, we leave. That night. No second chances. No excuses. We pack up and we go. And I will never make that mistake again. You promise? On my life. Clara was quiet for a long moment. Then, slowly, some of the tension drained from her shoulders. When's the wedding? We haven't decided yet. Soon, I think. Neither of us sees much point in waiting. Can I wear the blue dress? The one Miss Martha gave me? Maggie felt tears prick her eyes. You can wear whatever you want, baby. And can I help you get ready? Do your hair and such? I would love that. Clara nodded once, sharply, as if coming to a decision. All right, then. I guess if you're determined to do this, someone ought to make sure you look presentable. She stood and walked toward the door, paused with her hand on the frame. Ma? Yes? I don't hate him. Caleb, I mean. I want you to know that. I don't hate him. I know you don't. I'm just scared of being wrong again, of trusting someone and having it blow up in our faces. I know, baby. I'm scared too. Clara looked back at her, something vulnerable flickering behind her careful mask. But you're doing it anyway? Sometimes being brave means doing the thing that scares you. You taught me that, remember? When you pointed that rifle at Blackwood. A ghost of a smile crossed Clara's face. I guess I did. So yes, I'm scared. But I'm doing it anyway. Because some things are worth being scared for.
Clara nodded again and left without another word. Maggie fell back against the pillows, her heart racing. That had gone better than she'd expected. Not perfectly, but better. Now she just had to tell the others. Sam took the news with surprising equanimity. About time, he said, not looking up from the harness he was mending. About time? That's all you have to say? What else is there to say? Everyone with eyes could see this coming. You two have been mooning at each other for weeks. We have not been mooning. Ma, Sam finally looked up, a smirk tugging at his lips. You absolutely have. Maggie felt her face flush. Well, I'm glad you're not upset. I'm not saying I'm thrilled. I'm saying I'm not surprised. He went back to his work. Caleb's all right, I guess, for a grown-up. High praise coming from you. Don't get used to it. Rosie, predictably, was ecstatic. A wedding? A real wedding? With flowers and cake and everything? Yes, sweetheart. A real wedding. Can I be the flower girl? Please, please, please? Of course you can. And can I pick the flowers? And wear a new dress?
And invite my friends from school?
We'll see about the friends. It's going to be a small ceremony.
But there'll be cake, right? There has to be cake.
There will definitely be cake. Rosie threw herself into Maggie's arms, squeezing tight.
I'm so happy, Mama. I'm so happy. Mr. Caleb is the nicest man ever, and now he's going to be our pa, and everything is going to be perfect forever.
Maggie held her daughter close, breathing in the sweet little girl's smell of her hair. Not perfect, sweetheart. Nothing's ever perfect, but good. Things are going to be very, very good. Benny was the one she worried about most. She found him in the barn, sitting on a hay bale, watching Caleb work with one of the horses. He didn't notice her at first, too absorbed in whatever quiet bond was forming between him and this man who had somehow broken through walls that no one else could breach. "Benny?" He turned, his small face serious. "Hi, Mama. Can we talk?" He nodded and scooted over to make room for her on the hay bale. Caleb, she noticed, had moved further into the barn, giving them privacy without being asked. "I need to tell you something important." "About you and Mr. Caleb getting married?" Maggie blinked. "How did you know?" "Rosie told me. She's telling everyone. I think she told the chickens, too." Despite everything, Maggie laughed. "That sounds like Rosie." "Is it true?" "Yes, baby, it's true." Benny was quiet for a moment, processing. Then, "Does that mean Mr. Caleb is going to be my pa now?" "Only if you want him to be. He's going to be my husband, and he'll live with us, and he'll take care of us. But what you call him, how you think of him, that's up to you." "What if I want him to be my pa?" Maggie's heart squeezed. "Then he'd be honored, and so would I. My other pa was mean. I know, baby. Mr. Caleb isn't mean. No, he isn't. He teaches me things about horses, about fixing fences, about being brave." Benny's voice dropped to a whisper. "He says I'm brave, Mama. He says I'm the bravest kid he knows." "He's right. You are." "Pa never said that. Pa said I was weak, that I cried too much." "Your father was wrong, about everything, but especially about you." Benny looked up at her, his eyes too old for his young face. "I want Mr. Caleb to be my pa. Is that okay?" "That's more than okay. That's wonderful." "Will you tell him? I'm too scared to say it myself." "How about we tell him together?" Benny nodded, and they walked hand in hand to where Caleb was working. "Caleb?" He turned, wiping his hands on his trousers. "Everything all right?" "Benny has something he wants to tell you, but he's a little nervous. So I'm going to help him." Caleb crouched down to Benny's level, his expression gentle. "Whatever it is, you can tell me. I promise I won't be upset." Benny looked at Maggie. She nodded encouragingly. "I want—" He stopped, swallowed hard. "When you marry Mama, can you be my pa too?" Something broke open in Caleb's face. All the carefully maintained composure, all the patient distance, it all crumbled in an instant. "Benny," his voice was rough, "nothing would make me prouder." "Really?" "Really. I've been hoping you'd want that. Hoping so hard. But you never said." "Because it had to be your choice, not mine. Never mine." Benny stood there for a moment, uncertain. Then, in a movement so sudden it startled everyone, he threw himself at Caleb and wrapped his arms around his neck. "I love you, Pa." Caleb's arms came around the boy, holding him tight. Over Benny's head, his eyes met Maggie's. They were wet with tears. "I love you too, son." The wedding was held 2 weeks later, on a crisp November morning. The whole town came, it seemed. Martha Hutchins served as Maggie's witness. The lawyer, Henry Dawson, stood up with Caleb. Reverend Thomas from the Silver Creek Church performed the ceremony,
his deep voice carrying across the small gathering. Maggie wore a simple white dress that Martha had helped her sew. In her hair was a crown of wildflowers that Rosie had picked that morning. She carried a bouquet that Clara had arranged, beautiful and wild and perfect. And when she walked down the aisle toward Caleb, she didn't feel afraid. She felt like she was finally coming home. "Dearly beloved," the Reverend began, "we are gathered here today to witness the union of Caleb James Mercer and Margaret Ellen Sullivan in holy matrimony." Maggie barely heard the words. She was too busy looking at Caleb, at the way his hands trembled as he took hers, at the tears he wasn't even trying to hide. "Do you, Caleb, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold from this day forward, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, until death do you part?" "I do." His voice was steady now, certain. "With all my heart, I do." "And do you, Margaret, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband, to have and to hold, from this day forward, for better or for worse, for richer or for poorer, in sickness and in health, to love and to cherish, until death do you part?" Maggie looked at this man, this good, kind, patient man who had appeared in her darkest hour and offered light, who had loved her children before he loved her, who had waited and hoped and never once demanded. "I do." "Then by the power vested in me by God and the territory of Colorado, I now pronounce you husband and wife." The Reverend smiled. "You may kiss your bride." Caleb cupped her face in his hands, gentle as always, and kissed her softly. The crowd erupted in cheers. When they broke apart, Maggie saw her children watching. Rosie was bouncing with joy. Benny was grinning wider than she'd ever seen. Sam was trying to look unaffected and failing spectacularly. And Clara was crying. After the ceremony, there was food and music and dancing. The whole town seemed determined to celebrate, and Maggie and Caleb were swept up in a whirlwind of congratulations and well wishes. But through it all, Maggie kept watching Clara. Her eldest daughter had retreated to the edge of the celebration, sitting alone on a fence rail, watching the festivities with an expression Maggie couldn't quite read. "Go talk to her," Caleb said quietly. "What?" "Clara, she needs you." "She needs space. She always needs space." "Not this time." He kissed her forehead. "Go. I'll entertain our guests." Maggie made her way through the crowd to where Clara sat. "Mind if I join you?" Clara shrugged. "It's a free country." Maggie climbed up onto the fence rail beside her daughter. For a while they just sat there, watching the party. "You look beautiful today," Clara said finally. "Thank you. Happy, too. Really happy." "I am happy. Happier than I've been in... I don't even remember how long." Clara nodded slowly. "Good. That's good." "What about you? Are you okay?" "I'm fine." "Clara, I said I'm fine." "And I know you well enough to know that when you say you're fine in that voice, you're anything but." Clara's jaw tightened. For a moment, Maggie thought she would shut down, retreat behind the wall she'd built so carefully over the years. But then, slowly, the walls began to crack. "I keep waiting to feel something," Clara said quietly. "Joy, maybe? Or hope? Everyone else seems to feel it. Rosie's over the moon. Benny's already calling him Pa. Even Sam seems lighter somehow." "But not you?" "I want to feel it. I really do. But there's this voice in my head that keeps saying it's not real, that it can't last, that something will go wrong because something always goes wrong." "Oh, Clara, I know it's stupid. I know Caleb's different. I've seen it with my own eyes. But knowing something and believing it are two different things. Maggie put her arm around her daughter, pulling her close. It's not stupid. It's self-protection. You learned a long time ago that hoping for good things just leads to disappointment. That the safest thing to do is expect the worst. You sound like you know. I do know. I felt the same way for a long time. Part of me still does. Then how do you do it? How do you let yourself hope? Maggie considered the question carefully. I don't think hope is something you just decide to have. I think it's something that sneaks up on you. It happens in small moments. When Caleb remembers how you take your coffee. When he laughs at something you said. When he looks at you like you're the most important person in the world. That sounds nice. It is nice. But it's also terrifying. Because every time you let yourself hope, you're opening yourself up to being hurt. And that takes courage. More courage than picking up a rifle and facing down a judge. Clara was quiet for a long moment. Then, Ma, can I tell you something? Always. I do feel something about Caleb. I've been feeling it for a while. What is it? Safe. Clara's voice cracked on the word. He makes me feel safe. And that scares me more than anything else. Maggie's eyes filled with tears. Oh, baby. Because if I let myself feel safe, and then he turns out to be like Pa, he won't. You can't know that. You're right, I can't. But I can know this. Even if the worst happened, even if everything fell apart, we would survive it. You and me and your brothers and sister, we've survived worse. We'd survive again. I don't want to survive again. I want to live. Then live. Take the risk. Let yourself hope. Maggie squeezed her tight. And if it all goes wrong, I'll be right there beside you. Same as always. Clara turned and buried her face in Maggie's shoulder, the way she used to when she was small, before the world taught her to be hard. I love you, Ma. I love you too, baby. So much. They stayed like that for a while, mother and daughter, holding on to each other while the celebration swirled around them. Finally, Clara pulled back, wiping her eyes. I must look a mess. You look beautiful. Liar. Okay, you look like a beautiful mess. Clara laughed, a real laugh, and something in Maggie's heart unclenched. Come on, Clara said, sliding off the fence. We should get back to the party. In a minute. I want to enjoy this moment. What moment? The moment when my daughter laughed. The moment when she stopped being afraid, even for a second. Maggie smiled. Those moments are precious. I want to remember everyone. Clara rolled her eyes, but she was smiling too. You're getting sappy in your old age. I earn the right to be sappy. Now go. I'll be there soon. She watched Clara walk back toward the celebration, watched her be intercepted by Rosie, who demanded a dance, watched the two sisters laugh and spin together. Her family, whole and happy and finally safe. Caleb appeared beside her, 2 cups of punch in his hands. How'd it go? Good. Better than good, actually. I saw her laughing. Haven't seen her do that much. She's going to be okay. They all are. So are you. He handed her a cup. So are we. Maggie leaned against him, feeling his solid warmth, his steady presence. I never thought I'd have this, she said quietly. A real family, a real home, a real chance at happiness. Neither did I. After Sarah died, I thought that part of my life was over. Thought I'd just exist until I stopped existing. What changed? You know what changed. He turned to look at her, his eyes soft. You showed up at that train station, scared and desperate and fierce as a mama bear. And something inside me woke up. I was a mess that day.
You were a miracle. You just didn't know it yet. The party went late into the evening. There was more food, more music, more dancing. Sam was coaxed onto the dance floor by Abigail Foster and spent the entire song blushing furiously. Rosie fell asleep in Martha's lap. Benny stayed glued to Caleb's side, introducing him to everyone as my pa. And Clara danced with her mother. She danced with her siblings. She even danced with the lawyer, Mr. Dawson, who was surprisingly spry for his age. But she hadn't danced with Caleb. As the evening wound down and guests began to drift home, Maggie noticed Clara hovering near the edge of the dance floor, watching Caleb talk with some of the ranchers. "Go ask him," Maggie said quietly. Clara startled.
What? Ask him to dance. He won't bite. I don't want to dance with him. Liar. Clara's face flushed. Ma, I know you're scared. I know trust doesn't come easy for you. But he's your family now, Clara. Whatever else happens, he's family. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything. Just ask. Clara stood there for a long moment, wrestling with herself. Then, with a visible effort, she straightened her shoulders and walked toward Caleb. Maggie watched, heart pounding. She couldn't hear what Clara said, but she saw Caleb's face change, saw the surprise, then the hope, then the careful joy that he tried to contain and couldn't. He said something back. Clara nodded, and then they were dancing. It was awkward at first. Clara was stiff, keeping distance between them, her eyes fixed somewhere over Caleb's shoulder. But gradually, step by step, she relaxed. Let him lead. Let herself be held. The song was slow and sweet, one of the last of the night. Maggie watched her daughter and her husband move together, and she felt something break open in her chest. This was what she'd wanted, what she'd fought for, what she'd crossed 3 states and faced down a judge and risked everything to achieve. Not just safety, not just survival. Family. Real, true, complete family. When the song ended, Clara stepped back from Caleb. They stood there for a moment, not speaking. Then Clara said something that Maggie couldn't hear, and Caleb's face crumpled. He pulled Clara into a hug, holding her tight, his shoulders shaking with sobs he couldn't control. Maggie moved closer, desperate to know what had happened, what Clara had said that could affect him so deeply. When she reached them, Caleb looked up. His face was wet with tears. "She called me Pa," he said, his voice breaking. "Maggie, she called me Pa." Maggie's hand flew to her mouth. Clara was crying too now, her face pressed against Caleb's chest, her arms wrapped around him like she never wanted to let go. "I was scared," Clara was saying. "I was so scared. But Mama said to take the risk. She said some things are worth being scared for." She was right. Caleb's voice was thick with emotion. She was absolutely right. Maggie wrapped her arms around both of them, and they stood there, the 3 of them, holding on to each other while the last of the party faded away around them. Sam appeared, looking confused. "What's happening? Why is everyone crying?" "Happy tears," Maggie said through her own. "These are happy tears." "That's the dumbest thing I ever heard." "Get over here and hug us anyway." Sam rolled his eyes, but complied. And then Rosie was there, woken by the commotion, and Benny. And suddenly they were all tangled together. 6 people who had started as strangers and become something more. Family. That night, after the children were in bed and the house was quiet, Maggie stood on the porch with her husband, looking up at the stars. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For being patient. With Clara. With all of them. With me.
Patience ain't hard when you love someone.
Still, a lot of men would have given up.
I ain't a lot of men. Maggie smiled.
No, you're not.
They stood in comfortable silence for a while, watching the night sky. Maggie? I need to tell you something.
What is it?
Caleb took her hand, turned to face her. I spent 6 years thinking my life was over, that love was something I'd had once and lost forever. I built walls so high I thought no one would ever get through them.
But
then you showed up, scared and desperate and fighting for your children with everything you had. And you crashed right through those walls like they were made of paper. Maggie laughed softly.
I didn't mean to.
I know. That's what made it real.
He lifted her hand to his lips, kissed her knuckles.
I want you to know that I will spend every day of the rest of my life trying to deserve you, trying to be worthy of the trust you've placed in me, trying to be the man you and those children need me to be.
Caleb, you already are.
Then I'll keep being him. Forever. I promise. She stepped into his arms, felt them close around her, warm and safe and home.
Forever,
she repeated.
I like the sound of that.
Inside the house, the children slept. Clara and Rosie in one room, Sam and Benny in another. 4 children who had known too much pain, who had seen too much darkness, who had survived things no child should have to survive. But they were healing now, learning to trust, learning to hope, learning that not every story ends in tragedy, that some endings are beginnings in disguise. On the mantel above the fireplace, Sarah's sampler still hung. Home, Sweet Home. But beside it now was a new addition. A small drawing that Rosie had made, showing 6 stick figures holding hands beneath a smiling sun. At the bottom, in careful letters, she had written, Our Family. Outside, Maggie and Caleb held each other under the stars, 2 wounded people who had found their way back to love. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new joys, new opportunities to build the life they'd dreamed of. But tonight, there was just this. 2 hearts beating as one. A family sleeping safe inside. A future bright with promise. The frontier was vast and wild and full of uncertainty. But here, in this small ranch in Colorado Territory, something beautiful had taken root. Something that would grow and flourish and last for generations. Something that had started with a simple act of kindness at a train station and blossomed into a love story for the ages. Because that's the thing about second chances. They don't come easy, and they don't come free. You have to fight for them. You have to be brave enough to hope, strong enough to trust, and stubborn enough to keep going even when everything seems lost. Maggie Sullivan had done all of those things. She had run from darkness and found light. She had protected her children against impossible odds. She had opened her heart to a stranger who became her everything. And now, standing in the arms of her husband, surrounded by the life they had built together, she knew the truth that had eluded her for so long. Home wasn't a place. It was the people who loved you. The ones who showed up when you needed them. The ones who stayed when staying was hard. Home was Clara and Sam and Rosie and Benny. Home was Caleb. Home was here, in this moment, under these stars, with this family. And Margaret Sullivan Mercer was finally, completely, irrevocably home.